Hello everyone. So this video is going to be in continuation with the earlier video which I uploaded yesterday, and then there was some issue with my system and then I couldn't complete it. So going to complete it today, and then we'll be moving ahead with some more concepts on module pool, and then that will conclude our module pool programming. So let's go back to the SAP screen. So this is our program GM test, and then I'm executing this now, the T code. So basically GM test is the T code, executing it now, hit on next screen, and if I do an F8 here, you can see that I am on my screen number 9002. You can see a new GUI title here, new GUI status here, and then you can see the line items 10 and 20 appearing in the table control. So by default, whatever line items are appearing here, it will make the table control as editable. If you want, you can put a loop and you can make it non-editable, and you can see that this GUI status, if I click on back, I come to this screen. If I click on next screen again, let's remove this break and then do F8, I come to this screen. If I click on this or this, it kicks me out, because that is how I programmed it. So the other thing which you should understand by now is, because you know the concept of internal table, work area and loop. So what is the use of loop here? So the moment you click on next screen, system goes and picks all the line items for this, puts it in an internal table which will be passed to the table control, and then there is a loop on that internal table. So it's basically, in a normal report, whenever you try to display the output of an internal table, what you generally do, you put a loop on internal table into work area, and then you keep on writing the content of the work area. So this is the same thing, same concept. What we are doing here, we are putting a loop on the table control, and then the work area is being displayed in the different rows of this table control. So if you remember this mark which we created yesterday, so using this you can select it. Okay, so next thing is to work on this plus and minus, because as of now the third line item is disabled. So we'll do one thing, we'll go back to our reference program and then we'll refer the code from here, because even I also don't remember everything. So this is a sample program, and I have already showed you the navigation, how you can reach here, environment, example, control example. So this is the code for insert line above cursor position, and 1 second, just getting a call, 1 second. Okay, so the function code or the SciUCOM for this one is INSR. So basically you are on the screen 9002, and you are going to do an activity which is PAI, that is process after input. So when we can mention append initial line to IT underscore VBAP. So don't bother about the table control. If you have a normal requirement that you enter some values on screen 1 and display some values on screen 2, which is a static one, what you can do, you can directly design the fields here and then directly call the output there. So table control is basically to display the multiple output. Sorry, I'm getting calls from my office, so I have to take it in between. So okay, so the other things, if you remember, in 9002 screen, uh, we are doing a loop on ITBBAP, and then we are doing a modify. So this is basically required if in case you are entering some values on the table control, and then you want to insert it in your internal table basically, so that the values remain there. So what we need to do, modify IT underscore VBAP. So if we refer this code, sample code, so index tc underscore VBAP is our table control hyphen current underscore line. So current line is the property of table control, that is the control which we defined yesterday. So let's see now what happens. So it's not taking the value. Let me see. Okay, let me just debug this one. Why it's not working? Okay. So basically what we are going to do now, we'll just see if the modification was successful. If not, then we'll just append the values directly. So we'll mention if not size of our sage initial append w underscore vbap to. So let's try this one. So if there is a change in the value, it will be modified, and then if there is any new value inserted, then it will be appended in there. So for example, if I make it 222, so my god, multiple calls today. Okay, I'm not taking this one. So the expectation is like all these values should be appended here at the same time. This should be changed to 222. So if I hit enter now, still not working. And then so let me do a debugging 1 second. Okay, so I got the problem. So what happens, as per our code, the moment it inserts the record in this internal table, the additional record, it again goes to the PBO of the screen and then fetches the data again from VBAP into the internal table, and that way it again switches it back to the original two records. So what we are going to do, so we can move this module to the user command, and then we can make it perform and push it in F01. Copy this code here and comment this. Go to this perform. So now what we are doing, we are the moment user is pressing next screen button, we are fetching the data there itself. Here we are fetching the data here itself and then calling the next screen, so that we don't need to do it here because it's refreshing the data. So let's execute the T code again. Go back here, give the sales document name, next screen. Okay, it's coming as disabled if I click on plus button. Anyway, so that's the problem with the IDES server. Oh. Now if I click on this one, basically the expectation is that it should insert an initial line. So the initial lines are inserted. Don't know why it's behaving differently this time. Okay, so I was just looking into it and then I found out the problem. So what happens whenever a table control gets displayed in front of us, the table control has to know that how many line it's going to display. So earlier what happened at runtime in debugging mode, we saw that we were able to insert a blank record, which means a blank line in the table control, but then table control was still displaying only two records. So what we need to do in the PBO of the table control, you define this G title and this title bar and the status. You also need to do one thing, because your IT-VBAP is modified by now, it might have more records. So what you need to do, describe this uh, with just to determine how many lines are there or how many rows are there, and then pass the number of lines in the table control property. Which means, for example, we are having let's execute the transaction now. So for now we are having two lines, but then the moment I do a plus, it inserts one more line in my IT-VBAP. So next time when it goes to the PBO, it will. So let's debug and see. So when insert, we are appending an initial line to IT-VBAP. So IT-VBAP is having three lines now. Then it will go to the PBO of this screen. In the PBO, it will load the PF status and title bar, and then we are describing the table. So now we are having three records. It will come in this, and then in TC-VBAP line earlier there were only two records, so now we are making it three records, because by default system will consider two records because we are fetching only two record in IT-VBAP, so we made it three. And then if I do F8, then we have one more blank line. So if I do again a plus, so lines will be inserted. Now if I copy this and put it here, so that was the problem. Basically we need to define the internal table or describe the internal table to determine the number of lines and pass it back to the table control property. Hit enter. Now the lines will be there, and the moment you cross the number of lines limit, vertical scroller would also be included automatically. So remaining lines are, you can see, disabled, so we can make it enable up to us now. Okay, the other thing is now deleting and then sorting. So let's again refer the sample code. So I'll pause it, refer it, and then I'll show it. Okay, so now what we are going to do here, yesterday we, sorry, this is a problem. So yesterday we defined a variable called mark, but actually when we are having that mark in our type structure, one second. So this is in change mode, and then I'm going to the layout. So this mark has to come from my work area, WA_VBAP hyphen. So now this makes sense. So why I did that, let me show you. So in my top include my structure TYVBAP is having a field called mark, and then rest of the fields. So I'm referring to the work area of this. Now if I activate this, so what I need to do, okay, let me just run the transaction. So if I select this one and do a /h, oh my god, one second. Okay, so I think it's bad day, I'm getting so many calls today. Okay, so So next thing is to work on the delete button. So if you guys remember yesterday what we did, or in the previous video what we did, we have selected this option with selection column WAVBAP hyphen mark, which is the first field in our type structure, and line selection is single as of now, column selection single. Okay, we can do it multiple. Go back, activate this. So basically the use of that mark field is whenever you select any row, then the value of mark would be X. So I'll show you that in debugging mode. So when delete loop at it underscore vbap into delete or maybe what we can do, we can write simple one line, delete it underscore vbap where mark equal to X, like this. So next, selected this one, /H, click on delete. So if you double click on WAVBAP, you will see that the mark is X now. So the internal table is also modified. First record is X. Second record is not X, so it won't be modified. Go to user command, we selected the delete button. So delete internal table. So as of now 2 records. It will delete one of it, and then it will again go to PBO, wherein it will describe the table. Now the number of lines are just 1. So it will display 1 line in the output. You can see like this. So this is how we tackle the delete button. So I'll just try to complete the sort one, hoping that I don't get any call in between, and then we are done with table control. If there is anything else you need, you can just Google it out, but I am sure you know the concept. I'll just summarize the concept in the end of this video, and then I'll rush for my office. So we are done with insert delete. Now next thing is sort. Search for selected column. So if column selected equal to X, yeah, so there is one more variable. Basically for column also they have defined column properties, you can see. So standard structures are there, tc underscore calls and call. So if I go to the screen, so let's copy this in our code. controls. This is a column control, and then this is just a work area for that. So just copying this from the standard code and trying to use it in our program. So when sort, so first thing is to search for the selected column and then sort it by the selected column. So here they have written this code because they are going to sort it with respect to multiple columns. You can refer it and you can work on it, but then I am going to sort it based on only one column. So whenever you select a column, it will come in this internal table tc underscore. So we are going to declare variable like this. So when sort, we'll put a loop and then we'll try to see which column is selected. So basically it will go through each column of the table control. You can see here, and then it will find out which one is selected and then it will append it in the variable field list. So we are simply going to copy this code tc underscore. So it's going through each column. If column is selected, it will be appended here, and then I'll show you in debugging. Okay, so field name also has to be declared. Field name is char type 100. Okay, so let's execute this program in debugging and see whether this code works or not. So let's say I select this column and then I go into debugging, do a sort. So we have 9 columns in our table controller, and you can see that system is picking the second one because we selected the second column. Let me see if I can show you that. Yes, we selected the second one, so system is automatically capturing the property of the second one selected. And then what we are going to do, we are going to put a loop and then identify the second one, put it in a variable. So by doing this, you'll see that in field list we have index S2, which means second one selected. So read table this index 1. So here we have a problem. It should be like they are trying to identify this field, so it's like they are doing an offset 2 1 3 2 5 2 7 1 8, so it should be 8. Here they have used 9, we'll make it 8. So we'll make it 8 later, but then let's make it correct at runtime, and then we are sorting it by the field name. Sort the internal table. Okay, let's fix this in the code. So every time it will be the 8th position, after 8 it should be the 9th one. So after 8th we are starting. So because we have WA underscore VBAP, so WA hyphen 3 VBAP 7 hyphen 8. So we are considering from 8 onwards, which is 9th one. So that is the offset. Now let's activate this. Let's execute the T code. Select this, sort. So it got sorted in ascending order. So what we did, we captured the column as I showed you earlier, which column is basically selected, and then based on that we identified the field, and then we sorted the internal table. Now I'll quickly summarize the points of table control which you have to take care while designing a table control, and then I'll just upload this recording. So while doing a table control, you need two different internal tables. You need two different loops in the screen, not internal tables. So you can see ITVBAP here, ITVBAP here. In PBO, it should be with the control and current line, because you want to place your cursor on the current line, which would be your first line. And then in PAI, you want to modify the internal table, okay, on the current line. And modifying means, for example, you are inserting some record in the table control. In that case, you are using this loop, so where you modify it. If modification is not successful, which means you are inserting a new record, you do an append statement there, so that new record is appended. In user command, we have insert, delete and sort. Exit and back you already know. For insert, you just append an initial line to ITVBAP. For delete, you just delete it based on the mark. For sort, you identify the selected column based on that selected field using the offset, and then sort the internal table. And then to make all these things come into effect, what you do, you go and describe your internal table every time in PBO, and then tell the table control that number of lines to be displayed is this much. Data selection, we moved okay, it should have gone into F01. 1 second. No, this is commented, so it's not going to work now. Okay, this is of no use. Okay. Now data selection, what we did, the moment on the first screen someone hits next screen or enter or whatever, then we're selecting the data here itself and then calling the next screen. So it's a very simple concept of table control. You enter some data here, do a next screen, select something, delete it, or click on plus, add it, add a new value and hit enter. It will be inserted now. Select this, delete this, okay, and then you can do a sorting also. Highlight this, sort it. So I think that's all about table control. Tomorrow we are going to discuss about tab strip, and then we'll also discuss how to create a selection screen, a select option in module pool programming, and then I think we'll be done with module pool programming. Select option, table control is done, screen navigation is done, chain and chain, yeah, so chain and chain also I'll explain tomorrow. So thank you guys for being with me. I got disturbed so much today with the calls, but then I'll see tomorrow what time I can upload the next session, and then we'll move to script and smart form, and after that we'll move to object oriented programming, so that once we are done with that we can cover the BADI and then object oriented ALV, and that will also help us to learn workflow. Meanwhile, someday I'll finish explicit enhancement and BTE also. Maybe once we are done with the forms, we'll finish these two things and then we'll move to object oriented. So thank you guys for being with me. I hope this video is going to be helpful to you. So few people are asking for the code, but the problem is I'm running this SAP in a VMware machine, and then it's basically a different machine in the same laptop obviously, but then I'm not able to copy this. So just pause my video whenever you see you want, and then just try to see the code there. So thanks once again, and then see you again.